Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Scribner, your host, with my co-host John Warner today. I'm going to label him right now Whisper123 as his call sign. I got to find my own call sign. But today we have Richard Kane from Verijet, the CEO. It's an amazing company, just like all our guests are going to get to hear his vision. Definitely a visionary. Would like to remind everybody that this show, all shows are available: Google, Stitch, SoundCloud, Apple, basically anywhere you can get your podcast, you can get the show. We'd love to get your followership. Just smash that subscription button, the like button, you'll get the alert for future shows, and you can dig back to other ones. But I was able to see this particular guest a couple weeks ago with John Warner's TEDx MIT event, and it's got to walk through some of this cool technology. Richard is an amazing visionary and is a really good friend of John Warner's, as you would expect. So with that said, Richard, welcome to the Shrimp Tank today.
Mark, John,
let me do justice to Richard. Richard was one of those child prodigies with the Apple IIe, figured out how to create some great technology. He's been in the transportation space helping airlines. He works with data, and now he's taking the audacious, he's has set a big goal for himself to create his own airline. And he operates a fleet of next generation carbon fiber. We'll learn a little bit why carbon fiber is good. Cirrus Vision jet planes. Richard's vision is to commission advanced airplanes that can, at low end, take off vertically and power your commute to work, and at high end, skip atop the Earth's atmosphere and take anyone to any place in the world in under 2 hours. Richard is truly disrupting transportation, and he aims to become the luxury Uber of air travel. And his planes are laden with AI technology, and they're safe. I've flown in them maybe 10 times. They include a parachute, auto land, and a modern cockpit that reduces pilot workload. The jet engine is behind where typical jets are, and it's only one jet and one pilot. And it's awesome. You feel like you're in a Tesla. People say, when are flying cars coming? Well, I believe this is it. And as other innovative technologies come on the horizon for transportation, I know Richard's vision is to incorporate them into his fleet. So Richard, really excited for you to tell people about what you're doing with Verijet. To begin with, can you explain a little bit how it is that you know the airline industry? There are people like Donald Trump bought an airline and put gold seatbelts on his planes, and we know how that turned out. Why, what is it that you have? Tell us a little bit about the experience you have as to why you think, this one's going to go the distance.
So the combination of artificial intelligence using the fleets more effectively, and we've been doing this for more than a decade, saving 800,000 metric tons of carbon footprint. That's 173,000 cars taken off the road every week, or 98 billion cell phones being charged. That's a lot of energy. The combination of that, which gives us 30 to 40% more efficiency, and then the amazing craft that we're flying today, the Cirrus Vision jet, another 50% more efficiency. It's the first thing that can credibly take people out of the first class cabin. We've lowered the price point, increased the safety. It's low impact environmental, noise and carbon. It's a alternative to that hub and spoke system. Basically, my target isn't the other charter operators. My target is the first class cabin of a United or a Delta when there's no direct service. And that's hundreds of city pairs that we're going to light up. Other people have seen the same opportunity. So David Neilman has an airline that's flying from some fairly big regionals, bypassing hubs. A couple of city pairs, but that's scheduled service. What we do is random and dynamic and chaotic, and it's this AI, big, hairy, terrible problem called the traveling salesman problem that I've been tackling for these last 15 years. And when you can do that, now you can light up service to 5,400 airports, take you right to where you want to go, bypass the hub and spoke. And for the first time, you can do it at a price point that looks like commercial service when there's a couple of people traveling. That's why it's different. It's never been done before.
Richard, I know we talked about this offline real quickly, but there has been a big surge in the past couple of years with the Bezos, all the different space flights and the industry, multiple industries in the travel. Obviously, that's probably not a low cost option trying to get launched around in space, but there seems to be in the past few years just big push to kind of disrupt like your industry, but also the space industry and things like that. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, that's what gave me the confidence to start an airline. So 20 years ago, I got involved with X Prize, and we put up a prize for a suborbital space plane. That was Spaceship One. Paul Allen spent $22 million with scaled composites to win that $10 million prize. And in total, we got incredible force multipliers on our $10 million. And it's not an exaggeration to say that opened up commercial space. So flash forward 20 years, and I'm at Las Cruces, New Mexico, seeing Sir Richard fly to suborbital space on Spaceship One. It's like watching your 4-month-old grow up and graduate college with honors. That's the journey that I've been on. The first of those machines, Spaceship One, is sitting at the Air and Space Museum next to the Spirit of St. Louis, the Bell X-1, and the Apollo 11 capsule. It's mind-blowing to be part of something that creates technology that ends up in air and space, right? All of this wraps around carbon fiber. The plane behind me is carbon fiber. Spaceship One is carbon fiber, laminar flow, lightweight, no metal fatigue, no corrosion. It opens up new vistas. You take that and you take a new type of propulsion, a new engine. In the case of the machine behind me, that's the FJ33, radically efficient at low altitudes. In the case of Spaceship One, that's a hybrid burning recycled tire rubber and laughing gas. I mean, non-toxic, low cost. New tech opening up new horizons. At the low end of what we're doing, again, carbon fiber is something called the beta aliyah. Takes off vertically, flies horizontally, radically efficient, radically quiet, 1,000 times safer than a helicopter, coming sooner than anyone would believe. So at a price point, because of its low maintenance and low cost of fuel, that rivals ground transportation. It's something cheap enough to commute to work. What will scare people, it's also pilot optional. And it'll take us a while till you get in an unpiloted craft. But I'll tell you that the machine behind me can land itself. One touch of a button, no pilot. Not under parachute, which it also has for emergencies, but it will pick a runway, land, and stop. Again, things that have never been available before. This convergence of technology, metallurgy, material science, artificial intelligence, is what lit up these projects. It's only been possible in the last couple of years. And I've built Verijet on top of all of this.
Hey, Richard, the Die Hard movies, number 2, I believe, was at an airport. Tom Hanks filmed the movie where he lived in an airport. It was so big that he found a way to get coins out of bringing back the carts. When we think of airports, we think of the major airports that we go to and transfer to other planes. Part of your vision is harnessing the network of smaller airports around the country. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that is so radical and why you think people are going to appreciate how you're going to harness that network?
So first of all, I love those movies. And John McClane is our assistant pilot for the Southeast region. I'm literally John McClane and just Die Hard reference every time. But our playbook's pretty simple. You go to an underserved airport. This one's Pensacola, but it could have just as easily been Tuscaloosa. And there's no commercial service. Tuscaloosa lost its commercial service pre-COVID. They lost their essential air service subsidies. They have an abandoned terminal. And so you used to be able to drive to Birmingham, takes about an hour and a half, and catch a Southwest flight that was a reasonably direct. And then post-COVID, Southwest curtailed its schedule. And so it's a day and a half to get to your meeting and a day and a half to get back. That's a direct quote from Robert Allman, who invested in our company. He has MSA Roofing out of Tuscaloosa. It's game changing. He will tell you he can be at 3 meetings in one day and be back home to his family same day. And that's something that's not happened. So the playbook is you bring some machines to an underserved airport. The mayor, in this case, Mayor Grosvenor, hands you a welcome Verijet. They roll fire trucks, which you can kind of see in the background of this image, with water cannons to welcome you. And then you're providing an essential service to their community that lights up economic development. It's a new airline that's actually welcome somewhere. No noise complaints because we're quiet, no environmental complaints because of our efficiency, and the chance to have some economic growth and sort of a charter airline desert. And so
you can launch on really short runways, but you didn't tell us the numbers. Like, are there 500 of these small airports? How many are there? I set you up there. How many of these small airports are there?
5,400. So the overarching message is that there's one or more of these close to you. 98% of us live within 20 miles of one or more of these. So you board our plane, there's no TSA, there's no waiting. You fly directly to where you want to go. Your door-to-door travel speed is now 300 miles an hour. So door-to-door travel in the US is lower than 75 miles an hour. By the time you drive to the big airport, get there an hour before your flight, God help you if you connect somewhere. If you connect somewhere, it's down in the 60s.
So just let me unpack that number. So you may be in a big plane, like a Dreamliner that goes really fast, but you're saying because of all these other transitions that are slow, it averages out much slower.
That's exactly it. So NASA identified this problem 25 years ago and created the Small Aircraft Transportation System. I was part of that. The inaugural conference was at Danville, Virginia. I was there. And the idea was to use a light aircraft, carbon fiber, one engine, flight deck optimized for single pilot, that could come in at low approach speeds and use these short runways and open up this fabric. And this fabric of airports is less than 1% utilized. So the goal of the SATS program is this. We went from horses to cars and got 75 miles an hour travel speed, and from cars to propeller planes, 200 miles an hour, and from propeller planes to jets, 500 miles an hour. And then with airline deregulation and hub and spoke and TSA, we're back down to 75 miles an hour. And yet every time you double the speed of travel, you replace the underlying technology. It's exactly 8 years from the first car to the last horse in Manhattan. That's what we're talking about. What NASA calls unlocking the fourth wave of high-speed travel. That's what Verijet is. And that's what Verijet is right now, regionally, with our Vision jets. But on the low end, we'll be using eVTOLs to basically take you out of traffic jams at a price point lower than your car. And at the high end, we'll do Boom Supersonic or Spaceship 3, something supersonic, and then something suborbital. So it's all about changing the way people engage with travel. And
so there's an element of Moore's law, it seems like, going on with just all that going on. I was curious, obviously your prior life, Inc. 500 company, amazingly successful in the AI, which you already mentioned, that correlates into a lot of this technology the past 15, 20 years. But you are disrupting an industry, and I'm sure you probably have some loose competitors like the NetJets or the Marquis. But when you're in an industry such as yourself, where you have I'm sure, a lot of different things to work with, like FAA, TSA. I know in Boston here, there's a need for an additional runway, but the neighbors kibosh it all the time because of the sound and the environmental issues. So that's not going to happen just because the population's kind of morphed around that issue. But what are some of the things as being in this endeavor, which is completely an industry disruptor, that maybe were a surprise for you, I guess?
So in the picture behind me, you see two of our jets on the ramp. But before this, they flew overhead in formation at 1,000 feet, and they were inaudible. So the noise complaints go away. These are 50 decibels quieter than stage 4 noise requirements. We can run them on biofuels. We can make it carbon negative. We're part of 4Air. We're carbon neutral today. Tomorrow, we'll be running some future sustainable aviation fuel, and not one made by grinding up forests, but one made from, say, blue-green algae that's been biohacked by Craig Venter, something like that. And so that will extend the life of these machines, and then we'll go electric. But taking a giant step back now, can you remember payphones and phone call rates that were $1 a minute internationally and all this? So
you remember Watts lines?
Yeah. So in the late 80s and early 90s, you had just two companies that had national footprint for fiber optics, AT&T and MCI. I took 6 regional phone companies. We pulled them together under the guise of national National Telecommunications Network, NTN. And speed of light, fiber optics, it doesn't matter if you zigzag a little bit, you can still have a coast-to-coast call. And we went after AT&T and MCI. Part of the reason long distance is nearly free are projects like this. So the same AI, the same traveling salesman algorithms, the same brute force calculations that could route 100 million phone calls an hour, 14 billion a month. By the way, software as a service basis, 68% EBITDA on audited financials, Inc. 500 list. That's how that came about. Same technology, but also the same play, just in a different vertical instead of telecom and transportation. So I took a number of regional charter operators and they were flying 40% empty. And that's hugely wasteful, environmentally unsound, fiscally inappropriate. And the best ones running my AI are now 20% empty, which is actually exceptionally good for this. You have to go pick up someone and pick up someone else, and you got to reposition empty planes. And that was great, but we were still flying heavy metal machines on short hops, like from Santa Monica to Las Vegas. That's 200 nautical miles. There's no time for machines that are optimized for high and fast to climb high and be efficient. So they're burning 9 times the carbon footprint. They're making ear-splitting noise. Santa Monica is under threat of closure because of the noise and the carbon. They've actually shortened the runway. So this large metal jet comes in, uses thrust reversers, it's ear-splitting. One person gets on it, goes to Las Vegas, and I'm on the ramp with 26 eco-minded sports stars and pop stars and their managers. And I had told them everything I've told you: low altitude, bad fuel burn, noise, safety, bird ingestion. We haven't talked about metal fatigue. We haven't talked about yet, but all these badness things that show up in the form of this one Challenger plane that shows up. And one person gets on, flies to Las Vegas. It was every reason they wanted to close Santa Monica Airport materialized right after my speech. It was like we staged it, but we didn't. And they wanted to carbon shame this bank that owned this jet. I'm like, please don't do that. This is my industry. Let's give them a better alternative. So Verijet is the right tool for the job. It's a light carbon fiber machine optimized to go low and slow and connect these small hops. And that's what we're doing. Tremendously safer, tremendously quieter, tremendously better for the environment. And nothing else comes close right now. We have the only machine that can do these things.
So Richard, I'm excited for people to learn about this airline. I think it's there's a bunch of things converging. Not only is it good for the environment, sustainability, but it's just such a quality of life game changer. Can you talk a little bit about why this is a good business venture? Because I think airlines have historically been very hard to get off the ground, no pun intended. And what's your insight that this is going to make it? Why is the timing good for this?
So first of all, it's working. We've been operating a little bit more than a year, about 1,600 flights completed, incredibly happy customers. Our customers are so happy they commission models of the jet that picked them up. They get a designer, they actually create it right down authentic to the tail number. We've never
like Harley Davidson fans, but different.
And there's an assembly line cranking these things out for us. So it's established, it is working. We've de-risked the project. We've proven we can do this. What's wonderful about this project is that the more hops you have in a region, the better the AI can optimize the fleet. So we grow because each airplane gives us $1.5 million of profit every year. EBITDA, I should say, every year. But we also grow because as you increase the density of operations, the efficiency gets better. So instead of 20% empty, maybe it's 15% empty. And those are big numbers for the environment, but also for the economics. And those are the two things that power our growth. And there is insatiable demand. So I have an AI that runs big chunks of this industry. The total charter industry in the US, not airline, just charter, is 25 billion. Short haul, turboprop and small cabin is 7.5 billion. I have an AI controlling about $600 million of that. And when I look at that space, we were trying to find one flight from Chicago to Tampa, and 30 charter operators wouldn't bid on it at any price. They're totally oversold. We've never seen that in the 15 years I've been doing this. So some of it is COVID and not wanting to travel with a bunch of strangers in a per seat model. There's some very good planes where you can put 11 strangers in a small cabin and it's very efficient. But the COVID exposure, or just generally, people don't want to do that anymore. You look at this unprecedented demand, and they're actually paying my other company to find aircraft. It's like someone put a gun to my head and said, Richard, start an airline. And there's no sign of this slowing down, because once you've flown from a small airport to a small airport at 300 miles an hour with a friendly pilot in perfect safety, there's no going back to airline mode anymore. And we're just growing based on references now. People buy a founder's card and they get to participate and they want to bring their friends, and we let them bring their friends, and more people sign up. And so we're down to how fast we can build airplanes now. And that's our gating factor. It's unprecedented demand. It's a service that's absolutely required. On my TED Talk, I had the hubs of misery displayed. And these are the traffic jams that you get into, and we go right around the traffic jams. But there's more to it than this. We're returning aviation to being a joyous experience. You are flying with a pilot who loves the machine they're flying, with visibility that is unheard of. Our carbon fiber gives us these enormous windows. You can see one here in the picture behind me. So people say, I've never had such great visibility. I've never been in such a smooth airplane. The bottom strakes on this plane are going like this. Active turbulence suppression during the flight. Think of a yacht that has roll control and you don't get seasick. That's the same mechanism. To my knowledge, this is the only plane that has that. And then the killer app here is that they say, I've never felt safer. I can land the plane myself by touching a button. Something really goes wrong. A ballistic motor fires a parachute and the whole airplane lowers to the ground. But on top of all that, I can see the pilot is barely working and that the AI is reminding him or her of everything they need to do. And it's this envelope of safety that people really understand. When we demonstrate to people who are afraid of flying, we tell them about all the accidents, the fatals that this prevents. And you would think that would send them running and screaming. Instead, they say, I've never felt better about the experience. So I have investors who say, I'm investing in you because I hate airlines. I put half my family on United and half on Delta so they don't die in the same plane crash. And my family is only going to fly Verijet now. And by the way, I'm investing in your company. If I may tell one more story like that. We oversubscribed our Series A. A gentleman calls me. This is almost the exact conversation. He goes, Richard, I'm a blue collar guy. My company buries power lines for a living. Customer service is a lost art in the US. Your pilot was so amazing. The aircraft was so great. May I give you $1 million? And this happened 4 times in a row, and we oversubscribed the Series A. That's a very difficult conversation to say no to. And because we show up with a jet, we're on time with a friendly pilot, we don't kill anyone, and it's that simple. So.
Is it true that you your primary residence is actually technically an airport?
It is. I'm looking at a runway over my right shoulder. We have an air show every Sunday. I have parking for 3 of these jets behind my house. There is nothing like being picked up for a meeting in your backyard, flown there directly. You go to the meeting that's a 6-hour car drive away, and you're back that afternoon. And I asked everyone to imagine what that's like, because we're going to bring that to everybody else. That's our Verijet vertiports, local VTOL ports where you can board, where it's radically inexpensive compared to a helicopter or an airplane, with perfect safety, and you're whisked to your destination and whisked back. And so we were at the Quinn, and I asked everyone to imagine a Verijet vertiport on top of or beside the Quinn, where you can just fly to Boston Logan and then fly to England or something. That's where we're going with this. That's what Verijet is about.
And do you where, if you're not comfortable saying this, but like what would be the cost for membership if it's VIP? I'm sure that's a moving target as your economics kind of move around, but where do you kind of see, or if you're comfortable saying what that, if someone wanted to join today, what would that look like?
I'm completely comfortable saying this. So Verijet's unique. We don't have any membership fees. Every dollar you gives us goes to flight time. Other companies actually have pretty big membership fees, and then you're buying flight time on top of that. Someone just calling us out of the wild is right now going to pay $32.50 an hour. That is for the entire airplane. That's all 6 seats, 4 adults and 2 kids. So think of it about $500 or $600 a seat. It starts to look like last minute coach when you can fill the airplane. And that's per hour. If you invest in the company, that drops way down. We have a convertible note that right now drops it to $2,100 an hour. If you buy a founder's card that's pre-purchasing 100 hours of flight time, that drops it to about $2,600 an hour. And it gives you access to our jet safaris. So this is taking some extraordinary people and going to Boston and meeting with David Sinclair and talking about longevity, and then going to Morristown, New Jersey, and Bob Harari's lab Cellularity and tied in with A360. Or it's about going to Churchill, Manitoba and seeing polar bears, and then circling Hudson Bay and doing flight seeing, or going to the deep Caribbean and shark tagging with our partners Beneath the Waves, who are doing blue carbon research, and then meeting with the government of the Dominican Republic and the Bahamas, and then going to an eco resort. So that jet card program is the 100 people who bought the first 100 Tesla Roadsters, and Tesla doesn't spend any dollars on advertising. We're looking and recruiting those people to basically pull their friends onto Verijet, but in a way that's going to be just massively enjoyable. Taking a plane off-roading to a small runway, for example, Stella Maris, where they filmed the James Bond movie Thunderball. It's too short a runway for jets. We land there, we're probably the first jet there, and people look around going, hey, I normally have to take a turboprop Caravan. What are you doing on my runway? And I had that conversation on the radio with 2 Caravan drivers. It changes everything. And so those are the ways to play with Verijet.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry, John, I don't mean to jump on you, but one of the things that Tesla talked about with their autonomous self-driving car a long time ago was that you could buy an investment car, but then, if it's self-driving, you can lease it out. Maybe there's a partnership with Uber. But do you see anything like that on your horizon? If somebody wanted, they're not flying all the time, but they buy, partner with you, buy this plane or make the capital expenditure for this plane, and then they want to put it into service in the rotation. Do you see any model related to that?
Yeah, so our first 30 aircraft were purchased by individuals and leased back to us. They receive the bonus depreciation. So this is about a $3.1 million aircraft. And you get maybe $1 million of depreciation to write off against your taxes. With the CARES Act, there was retroactive bonus depreciation. If you had a large tax bill 3 years ago, you could do this. And that powered up our company at de-risk what we were doing. But we also pay a lease rate to them that's higher than their carrying cost. So you have private jet ownership and it's cash flow positive and you own a jet. And people are really excited. They bring their families to the delivery ceremony because they own a jet. It's their first jet. And it's really cool to own a jet. But it's actually super cost effective as well. And then if they can use it for their companies or for travel, they invest or they get a founder's card, which we let people use for their whole company. And it's game over. They're not going to be on an airline again. So that's how we powered this.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I have a client that bought a big boat and he uses it like 1 week out of the year, but the rest is all like for charter. So he might be a possible person to talk with.
So what I love about Richard is you are a techie, you're an airline pilot enthusiast, and you're a savvy business person, and you recognize all the converging trends. And I think you can change the vector of travel. And I'm glad that Mark, we have an opportunity to interview someone kind of early days. I know you're getting some investors and you're getting this thing going. I've experienced the plane. I've done 2 events where I had people use the plane to get to the event, or once at the event, they used it to go to other places. It was phenomenal. And I think as we value our time more and more, time is going to become a really scarce commodity that people want to do things with it that they feel is additive. I think this, and with all the climate change anxiety and concerns, people want to feel like they're part of the solution. I think you're onto a few things, but it's not going to be easy, and you need to find the right partners, right investors. But I'm really proud of you. I know you have about 15 of these $2.7 million planes, I think. but you plan to have a fleet of them like in the thousands in the near future. You're kind of like the kid with the coolest sneakers. You're whatever the new vehicle of choice, whether it's electric helicopters or VTOLs or quadcopters you wear on your back, you're going to incorporate them into your fleet. So I really look forward to watching you and supporting you, and thank you for leading.
Oh, the intermodal connections. You fly Emirates or Lufthansa to Miami, and we take you to Naples or Key West. Or you fly, and this is a real example, Air Canada to Fort Lauderdale, and you're in Key West in 45 minutes. Larry O'Brien, the former mayor of Ottawa, does this all the time, and he joined our cap table as an investor, and he has his friends do exactly that. So you can connect to the big jet that took you across the Atlantic. You could connect to our small jet and get to a state capital, have your meetings, and get back. You could fly to work in about 2024 on the betas.
And they're so quiet, you could do work on the plane. You could have a board meeting, you can have a screen on the plane and interact with people as you're going from point A to point B. Like it really, when people talked about self-driving cars and how it was going to save a lot of time, I think this is an example. You're taking advantage of some of those trends.
So I'm going to be a little silly here for a second. I used to open up my presentations with a picture of me and a dog, and the dog is wearing aviator sunglasses and flying. And the caption is, I'm there to monitor the computers, and the dog's there to bite me if I touch anything. Well, that's pretty much what's happening with these airplanes. The automation is such that they're certified. There is no second pilot position in these planes. There's no second in command. There's no first officer. It's just the pilot rating. And people are so used to two pilots, and the idea that they can land the plane themselves at the touch of a button is bizarre for them. And 30% of the time, people were paying us for second pilots. More than I expected. I didn't hire enough pilots to start with. And then they take some flights with us. And so the first pilot isn't really doing anything. He takes off, and then she presses some buttons, and then the computers fly, and the last minute they land, right? The second pilot is watching the first pilot not doing anything. So we actually split up the responsibilities. The second person's on the radio, the first person isn't. But our experienced customers quickly realize they're paying for that second body who's not really adding to safety whatsoever, and they stop. So we're going from two pilots to one pilot. You might remember there were flight engineers and three pilots on a 727. We're down to two. Verijet has got a national footprint. Our paperwork says airline operating certificate for one pilot and one engine. Zero is where this is going. The Beta Alea is pilot optional, but adoption of that, no pilots, I'm not holding my breath for that one. The technology will be there before the acceptance and the legislation. But you can find videos of people flying autonomously. 4 people just went to space autonomously with no pilot. So right. That is coming too. Just, I can't predict when that will be accepted.
We're about to wrap up right now, but so Richard, for all our listeners, they'll be able to find your contact information below the body of this video and podcast. I would like to again remind all our listeners that if you'd like to show future shows, smash that subscribe button notification. That would be amazing to get your followership. But for those that are interested, maybe talking to you about some kind of a partnership, maybe being an investor, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Just email richard@verijet.com. And
we'd love to have you back too as this starts to evolve. I see the endless possibilities. This truly is, we talked, many years ago about convergence, but this truly is convergence.
If I may do the shameless plug, if you're in the West Coast or Southeast or Mid-Atlantic, it's just 833 Verijet, and we'll just come pick you up at your close airport. The best way to understand what this is to fly us once. But Mark, it's been a privilege to be here. John, always wonderful to speak with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I've locked in working with you for next fall for my annual meeting with my CEOs, and then I'm doing 4 TEDx Bostons a year, and you're going to have a presence at many of those, and when you're in the Boston area, people can try it. But yeah, you're thinking of the national footprint, the 5,400 airports. How do you use your plane to get people around? So go get them.
Yep,
go get them. Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks so much, Richard, and good luck with your endeavor.
Yep, onwards and upwards. Thank you.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.